Hello chess fans, in today's video we are going to check out the match of matches. Reigning world champion Ding Liren playing with the white pieces against his challenger Gukesh. It's at the Sinquefield Cup. We are about 100 days away from the start of the World Chess Championship match, which is going to take place in mid-November, beginning of December in Singapore. And this is probably the last game the two are going to play against each other prior to this World Championship match. It's always interesting to see how players, when they know they are going to play a World Championship match, how they will play that game. Of course, it's not such an important game compared to their upcoming World Championship match, but still, you also don't want to lose. You want to give a signal to your opponent. You would like to hurt him a bit before the real action is going to take place. Now, the two have played only two classical games before against each other. It was in Wijk aan Zee, and both games were won by Ding Liren with the black pieces. This time he is playing with white at the Sinquefield Cup in St. Louis. And well, as I said, Ding is playing with the white pieces. Let's see how Gukesh can play this time. So we're going to check out that game. If you're interested in the developments at the Sinquefield Cup, make sure to turn on the notifications, hit the subscribe button, but also up to the World Championship match, probably we will cover more exciting games from Ding Liren and Gukesh. So stay tuned. Here, first we go, and we start with 1e4 played by Ding Liren. Gukesh is going to play very solidly, like we can expect from him. He goes for the move e5, knight f3, knight c6. The Italian game, bishop c4, bishop c5, castling kingside, knight f6, all pretty standard. d3, d6, c3, and now Gukesh likes this move a5, so that the bishop can always drop back to a7, and white doesn't get a chance here to gain space on the queen side. Rook e1, castling kingside, h3. There's so many different move orders and nuances in these positions. Even I fail to understand all of them, but the main aim is to get a game avoiding a lot of forcing sharp variations. Bishop e6, we have been talking about this possible exchange of light squared bishops before. White can take on e6 if he wants to double the pawns in the center, but with the pawn on a5, the bishop can actually also go to b5. It's sort of a weak square. Sometimes the idea is to take on c6 and push the pawn to d4. And to anticipate that, black drops back with the bishop to a7. So that once you go d4, the bishop will not be under threat. Bishop e3 played. And this time, black decides to take on e3. And white takes back with the rook. Looks like a very modest position, but I would say that having that pawn on a5 and especially the bishop on b5, white's position is perhaps a little bit more pleasant to play. Knight e7, if you see this for the first time, this Italian game, then you think, what is the knight going to do? Well, very simple. The knight is on its way to g6, so that after the move d4, white is attacking the pawn on e5 twice. The knight is there, and it looks like it's pretty well placed. Supporting the pawn. Later on, can even come to f4, for instance. And there are also ideas to play c6 to kick the bishop away. And white, therefore, voluntarily retreats the bishop to f1. Mysterious move, but very nice positional chess. The bishop is working always from distance. It's guarding even the king side. Not that black is having a dangerous attack here, but one of the possible plans for white, now the bishop is no longer on b5, is to play the move d5, maybe to play c4, so that the knight can come to c3. And well, if the bishop is on b5, then black can always consider moves like c6. So the bishop is now fine on f1, and probably black doesn't really want white to allow gaining space on the queen side and in the center. So black decides here to play the move d5. Full tension on the board. And you know that with this type of tension, all these pawns can be swapped. Then we have two open files. Major pieces are coming off the board, and potentially a very good chance that this is leading to a draw. But it's also white can decide first what to do. But interestingly, before releasing the tension here, white brings the knight out to d2. The knight does support the pawn on e4. Now, if you would take with the pawn on e4, white is going to take with the knight on e5. And as you can see, the pawn on e4 is pretty weak, can easily be attacked or even be taken by the knight or the rook later on. So this is something black should not do. Instead, black decided here to take with the knight on e4. But now white takes with the knight on e5. It's of course also possible to take with a pawn. But Ding Liren has a very clear idea in mind, as taking with the knight has the point of exchanging these knights. You take with the pawn back, knight takes d2, queen takes d2, and well, the position becomes more clear now. It's position with major pieces and a bishop only. White is having a nice pawn on e5 against the pawn on d5, but looks like this space advantage is somewhat favorable for white, but black is looking for counterplay. Played here the move c5, so he's mobilizing that majority with the potential idea of playing the move d5, d4. But look at this, rook g3. Now, this rook lift along the third rank would not have been possible had the knight still been on f3 and g6. So that explains that capture with the knight on e5 earlier on. The rook looks pretty threatening, with ideas of even getting the queen maybe into the attack to h6. Now, black has different ways of neutralizing potential threats. Can even put a king on h8, for instance, or get a queen into the game. I like this move the most, queen h4. So it's guarding the king side. It also does connect the rooks. And maybe white is still a bit better, but looks pretty okay for black. But Gukesh played here a very interesting idea, the move d5, d4. He's looking for immediate counterplay based on the creation of a passed pawn in the center. But look at this, queen h6, threatening checkmate in one, making use of the pin on the g file. So black has to play g6. And here we have a critical moment. How should white try to break through on the king side? Now, I was analyzing this position a bit. There are a lot of options. I will tell you a lot of options possible here. First thought which crossed my mind is, how about h4? Like, I want to go h5, take on g6. But if that happens, then probably black will go for the move c4. And if you go h5, black can always meet that push of the h-pawn by getting the queen to h4. And now you cannot take on g6 because the h-pawn is pinned. That's the main drawback of having the queen on h6. So pushing the h-pawn at this point is probably not the way to go. What should white do? What do you think, guys? This is interesting test. If you are going for an attack, make sure all your pieces are joining the party. This is rule number one, very important theme in basically any possible attack. Here, I believe that rook e1 is a very nice classy move, because that rook on a1 was not doing anything. And here, with a rook on e1, you are planning to make this rook lift with rook to e4 and probably rook to h4. Very, very interesting plan. And if you try to stop that with something like queen d5, controlling the e4 square, then I believe the move h4 is very dangerous. Like, you really want to go for the move h5, you want to go for the move bishop d3, and it's a very, very strong attack. Now, let's have a look. Sample. Like, if you take the pawn on a2, I'm going to play h5. Now, if you try to come back as quickly as possible, then the bishop comes into the attack. So here, all white's pieces are looking incredibly dangerous. Also, the pawn on h5 is very important. If you kick the bishop, there is pawn takes g6, f takes g6, bishop takes g6, and it's game over. Bishop can be taken. There is queen takes g6, king h8, and queen g7. Very nice idea, I would say. One more line, and this was all not played, but very instructive. After rook e1, if you play here the move c4, rook e4 is pretty good. And if you create protected passed pawn, there is a rook h4, threatening checkmate in 1 on h7. You cannot give up your queen and try to generate counterplay by creating a new queen yourself. The pawn can still be stopped with bishop e2. There are many other possibilities for both sides, but in general, I think this move rook e1 is very important. Now Ding had a different idea. He played the move bishop to d3. Makes also sense, right? You are looking at the pawn on g6. Maybe you're going to sacrifice the bishop at some point. But black goes for the move c4, hitting the bishop. And here the bishop goes to e4. Maybe attacking the pawn on b7. But black played the move d3 anyway. He's not fearing that pawn on b7. You don't really want to take there. If you do so, there is rook b8. You're hitting the bishop. If bishop goes away, black opens up the b file. The rook becomes super active. And white definitely got to watch out that protected passed pawn on d3. So how should white strengthen his attack? That is not simple at all. We have already seen that the plan with h4, h5 is not that dangerous as long as the queen is on d8, being able to come to h4. Well, the alternative plan perhaps is something like f4, with the idea to go f5, but queen d7, setting up a blockade on the f5 square. Now after rook f1, nice key move, defensive idea for black is to play f5. You're hitting the bishop, you're opening up the 7th rank, so your king is absolutely okay. Now if you would take on f6, it's rook takes f6, and white has to be very careful. I doubt this is going to end well for him. Anyway, at this point, Ding realized that his attack is not as strong as it could have been because of that presence of the protected passed pawn. It's really like a long-term weapon for black. If pieces are coming off the board, there that protected passed pawn is still there. So here, Ding, he kind of accepted that there's nothing better than to sacrifice the bishop on g6. Spectacular move. You take with the pawn, then it's rook takes g6. Pawn takes, queen takes. The king is open, but white is lacking attackers. Imagine the rook had been on e3, then the rook can join the attack here. But now after king h8, queen h6, king g8, your rook and the bishop down, taking the bishop. Still a rook down in that case is not going to help either. So after queen takes, king h8, queen h6, the players agree to a draw on move 28. I mean, maybe this is something you were kind of disappointed with to see, but I thought it was still very interesting battle in an opening. Both players are having this in their repertoire. I thought it was kind of an exciting short game. Could have been even more exciting if at the critical moment Ding Liren would have gone for rook e1. But okay, they're 100 days away from the World Championship match. They don't really want to test each other. So maybe it was part of the game plan anyway for Ding. Well, once again, thanks for watching this video. Let me know in the comments what do you think of this game. And hopefully in the next days some more coverage of the Sinquefield Cup. But as you can see, I'm not at home. I'm on the road coaching the Dutch delegation at the European Youth Chess Championships in Rapid Blitz and Classical Chess. So I'm pretty busy here. But anyway, I'll try to find some time to cover the most exciting games from the moment at this point. So thanks for watching, and we will see each other very soon again. Bye bye.